Alright, guys. In this presentation, we'll be talking about leadership. So, the learning objectives for this presentation is that at the end of the presentation, you will understand some of the prominent leadership theories, understand what emotional intelligence is and its effect on your success, understand the different leadership styles, and be able to effectively motivate the correct chapter members using the three-thirds members or three-thirds method. So here, I figured you guys have probably heard enough from me and you'll hear more of me. I wanted to show you guys a video of a summary of the 10 leadership theories. So let's sit back and listen to this guy.
Kurt Lewin, the renowned psychologist and researcher, said it well. There's nothing so practical as a good theory. Well, how about 10 good theories? To improve your ability to lead, here are 10 of the best-known leadership theories in 5 minutes. First are what was originally called the great man theory. It postulated that great leaders are born, not made. You either have it or you don't. And then it tried to identify the set of attributes that all of these natural-born leaders have in common. While it's now become clear that leadership is actually learnable, there's indeed truth to the notion that some people inherently have more leadership gifts than others. So this was a good start. It spawned something called the trait theory of leadership, a line of research that examines which individual characteristics we should pursue to lead effectively. The upside is that it's easy to understand. Be like this and people will follow you. But the downside is that it's identified dozens of traits, and no single set has emerged as the ideal for all circumstances, so it can be overwhelming to attempt. Somewhat related is the skills theory of leadership. Just like trait theory, it tries to identify a set of key attributes, but in this case, practical skills rather than just general qualities of a leader. The bottom line on this one is, if you want people to follow you, you need technical skills in your field. That is, you need to be good at what you're doing so you have some credibility. You need people skills like persuasion and diplomacy and affability, and you need conceptual skills, the ability to see the big picture and to think strategically. Next, there's the theory that leadership style is the key to success. Styles like be autocratic and demanding, or be democratic and participative, or be laissez-faire and leave people alone. Probably the best-known style-based theory is called the managerial grid. Adopt a leadership style that's both people-friendly and uncompromising on performance. It's a solid foundation, but there's a bit more to leadership effectiveness. That's where these next couple theories came from. Situational leadership theory argues that there's no one-size-fits-all model. Certain traits and skills and styles fit better in one situation than another, so the leader must adapt. For example, coaching a high school boys team may imply a somewhat different approach than coaching high school girls. Same objectives and standards perhaps, but to get great results might require more of a disciplinarian for the boys, but a highly relational coach for the girls. A closely connected idea is called the contingency theory of leadership. Whereas the situational leadership approach assumes that the situation is static and the leader should adapt to it, the contingency theory assumes that the leader's default style is also pretty much fixed. Maybe he's more task-oriented than people-oriented. So the trick is to fit the right leader to the situation. Bottom line, effective leadership is contingent on matching the leader's style to the setting. In the coaching example, it would mean to find and install the right coach, rather than hoping the current coach will adapt his or her style to the situation. Transactional leadership and transformational leadership are two theories that we can consider together. As the term implies, transactional leadership means that there's a reciprocity of behavior between the leader and the follower. People will follow based on the incentives in place. So the leader's job is to find the right mix of rewards and punishments, and then closely monitor what's going on. The theory of transformational leadership, by contrast, says that leaders gain buy-in and commitment not so much from the quid pro quo approach as they do from encouraging their followers, caring for them, inspiring them toward a vision. In short, they get results by proactively transforming the environment and the relationships, cultivating followership, rather than paying for it or punishing non-compliance like the transactional leader does. Leader-member exchange theory is a bit like transactional theory because it suggests that leadership is basically about a fair exchange between the leader and the led. But it goes further to say that the exchange creates an in-group and an out-group with respect to the leader. And that, in turn, affects people's performance and willingness to stick around. In a way, it's just like being back in high school. There was the in crowd, and then there were the rest of us, and that can have some dysfunctional consequences. So the theory suggests that leaders may want to address their tendency to alienate people. And then there's servant leadership theory, which is kind of a blend between transformational and transactional leadership. Boiled down to its essentials, it says that if a leader makes a priority of identifying and meeting followers' needs, serving rather than being served, that leader creates an environment of trust and cooperation and reciprocal service, and ultimately, higher performance. It's been popularized in recent decades by many researchers, but it goes back a lot further than that. Much of Jesus' influence, for example, was and still is a result of compassion and service and sacrifice. People follow out of love and gratitude, rather than out of compulsion or fear. Alright, that's 10 of the major theories in leadership, and there are important truths in each. The better you know them, the better you're likely to lead.
Alright, so there's your summary of the 10 leadership theories. In this, I want to say that obviously you guys can see that the servant leadership theory sounds like the best theory, and in one point it is. A lot of these theories are great to kind of keep in mind together, especially the servant leadership theory, and that obviously you guys don't have a lot of power over the individuals you have. Although you will find yourselves, trying to use transactional leadership. Hey, you do your community service hours, we'll reward you with, house points. If you don't do it, we'll fine you. But you want to make sure to balance these kind of leadership theories. And the one that kind of is an umbrella one is the style theory or situational leadership theory, where there's just different styles that you can apply to different situations. And so I think you guys have a good understanding of the other ones, but I want to go more into that one to kind of understand the different styles and how you guys can use them fitting into the situation or into the certain member. But we'll go on to that later into the presentation. First, just got cover a couple more theories. That way you guys have a full understanding of the theories out there. And one of the big ones is McGregor's X versus Y. And as you guys have probably already read on the screen, there's theory X and theory Y. And it's a really simple concept, and it's from McGregor, like I said. And the first one is basically summed up in that managers view workers as lazy, don't like responsibility, and I guess the assumption would be don't want to be at work. The other manager views workers as they're there to work, they're there to make a change, and they can exercise self-direction. And so obviously this will make a very harsh contrast between how you get reactions out of your members and how you treat them. So just always keep this in mind, because as you guys can probably see, theory Y most of the time is the theory to go with. But there is actually some times where theory X does prove useful depending on the members. And you'll kind of learn a little more about this as we talk about the leadership styles. Now, other than learning about these different theories, I think you would call this a theory is emotional intelligence. It's something that's come out recently, and it's kind of combating IQ. A lot of people say IQ is a big determiner of who's going to be successful, or even some leaders need to have IQ. But one thing that really online is a foundational thing to leadership is emotional intelligence. And so before I go too much more into it, let's go ahead and watch this short little video that does a great job of summarizing it.
Since the dawn of humanity, the understanding of well-being and rational decision-making has remained relatively unchanged. However, recent discoveries in neuroscience and psychology may fundamentally change long-held theories about emotions and reasoning. One recent study analyzed patients who had experienced damage to the amygdala, a primitive part of the brain that typically regulates emotions. What they discovered was that these patients had often lost their ability to feel emotions and make basic decisions. The implication of this discovery is that our decisions are not determined simply by logic or emotions alone, but rather a combination of the two. When we make a bad decision that affects our well-being, it is typically caused by an imbalance between our reasoning and our emotions. This process of understanding and facilitating emotions into rational thinking is known as emotional intelligence. Originally developed in 1990 by John Mayer, David Caruso, and Peter Salovey, the theory of emotional intelligence can be broken down into 4 simple aspects. 1. The ability to perceive emotion. For humans, cues like facial expressions and gestures can indicate complex emotions that influence our understanding of other people, such as happiness, sadness, anger, and fear. 2. Understanding emotions. Emotions convey information. For example, happiness usually indicates a desire to join with other people. Sadness indicates a desire to avoid people, and so on. Each emotion conveys its own patterns of possible messages and actions associated with those messages. 3. Using emotions to facilitate thought. In recent years, cognitive scientists have discovered that emotions prioritize our thinking. Therefore, having a good system of emotional input can help you focus on things that truly matter. 4. Managing emotions. Managing emotions involves the ability to promote certain types of behavior through emotions and using them to your advantage. For example, if you're sad, you're more likely to be reflective and analytical. If you are happy, you're more likely to be social and outgoing. These 4 aspects that make up emotional intelligence inform our decisions, help predict life outcomes, and help us understand people in order to build healthy relationships.
So pretty cool video on emotional intelligence. It definitely summarizes it perfectly, and also puts it in a pretty interesting perspective of just laying out those 4 different characteristics, which aren't they're not originally presented that way. So I'm going to go ahead and cover how it's originally presented, although the way they presented was also a very good way of understanding it. So the original and usual way for understanding emotional intelligence is using this matrix. So it has 2 components of personal competence and social competence. And then within those 2, there's what I see, so your perceptions, and then what I do, and so your kind of your follow through of actions. And so in personal competence, there's what I see is my self-awareness. I look inside. What do? I try to self-manage, and like in the video mentioned, managing your facilitation of thought, your cognitive use of emotions, and also, of course, your behavior use of emotions. As for social competence, there's social awareness, so looking out to around you and in your relation to people and their relation to you. And of course, then there's the what I do of the relationship management, so managing those relationships. That way you can have those advantages. So now I'm just going to go into each component real quick, give you guys a brief talk about those so you fully understand this concept. So the components of personal competence, the first one, like I mentioned before, was self-awareness, and that is your ability to accurately perceive your emotions and stay aware of them as they happen. You definitely don't want to avoid emotions. Anger can be a good emotion. Like they mentioned, sadness can even be a good emotion if used appropriately. And let's go into that then. So the management. So self-management is your ability to use awareness of your emotions to stay flexible and positively direct your behavior. And by flexible, it means you can change. You can work with them and not just be rigid and like, I'm sad, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to shut down. Like I'm going to be flexible and use this. So let's go into social now. So social similarity, social awareness is your ability to accurately pick up on emotions, so kind of like an empathy in other people and understand what is really going on. Relationship management is your ability to use your awareness of your emotions and the other's emotions to manage interactions successfully. That is huge. That is leadership right there. Don't forget about your own emotions. If you don't know your own emotions, you're not going to be able to figure out others and be able to use your own in those interactions. But this is where the tire meets the road in leadership. So, covering one last time to really press on the importance of why emotional intelligence is important. It's not just important to your leadership success, but your life goals and happiness. It allows you to understand yourself more clearly and how to interact with the outside world. It helps you understand your intentions, attitudes, and beliefs. So that way you can make better decisions and you can be flexible in your own beliefs and attitudes on different subjects. Finally, the video did a good job of mentioning how it's important for understanding your emotional, cognitive, and behavioral flexibility. So being flexible in your emotions and how you think about emotions, or even just think, and being flexible in your behaviors. And so the three things, the whole person is made up of IQ, EQ, and personality. And like I said, you guys are going to take a personality test and be able to understand that. Hopefully, you guys will. I think generally with this understanding emotional intelligence, you'll be able to do a good job of looking at yourself and how you do on emotional intelligence. But there is resources out there to more accurately measure that. And of course, IQ. You guys are in school. I don't need to cover that. They're already trying to cover your rational side, which is important as well. So, leadership styles. I feel leadership styles are important. They they really, let me think about this. They a lot of the styles make up different component, or they're based on a lot of the different theories. So I like the leadership styles because they do a lot of them incorporate the different leadership theories, and so it's a really, if you can get, like he said, some theories are really, they can be very comprehensive, but they're just hard to understand. Leadership styles, if you can get your head wrapped around it, which is not too hard, then you can really utilize them to your advantage. And with emotional intelligence, you can be able to change your styles to the situation. And when you guys did your U section and you learned about your natural leadership style, with that understanding, you know when you're stressful or challenged, you'll stick to that style. But with enough emotional intelligence, you'll be able to switch through them. So there's two people I want to mention who have mentioned or looked into leadership styles. One is Lewins, and the other one I'll talk about later. But Lewins is pretty simple because it was back in the 1940s he developed this, and he found these three different kind of styles. So pretty simple concept of just there's some leaders that are autocratic or kind of dictatorship, and I love this diagram because it just shows the comparison of each. And so like for the autocratic, he just says do X, do this. I have the final say, and that's it. On the other side of the spectrum is the laissez-faire leader, who is just, dude, you can do X, you can do Y as you see fit, I'll leave you to it. And so he's not really leading people. He's just kind of, there saying, hey, if you have any questions, just come ask me. In the middle, there's the democratic leadership style, which Lewin suggested was best, and it's where they would pose X or Y. And so they bring in participation of the group, and it builds an actual relationship where it's not a one-way street or just a laissez-faire where they just, seem to not care. So, the other kind of, and there's all kinds of different styles, I guess you would say, or how people label them. But I like the Daniel Goleman, Richard Boatis, and Annie McKee in their Primal Leadership book, where they have these 6 leadership styles, and each of them have a different effect on the motion of the target followers. And I guess I put it more of, these styles are really good in different situations, plus different people, plus your own kind of self at the time, your mood or whatever be attitude. So you got to put these all 3 of those, the situation, the person you're working with, and yourself to kind of really work out the appropriate style. So let's go ahead and look through all the styles, have a general understanding of them, and then you can be able to utilize these to your benefit. So the first one is the visionary leader. He moves people towards a shared vision, telling them where to go but not how to get there. So just a very charismatic guy, has the vision, and he's just going to point there. Much like, I guess, the democratic guy would be. I don't know. It's kind of hard to make comparisons with Lewins. But so he thus motivates them to struggle forward. Doesn't really have the answers, but pushes them forward and keeps them motivated. These leaders openly share information, hence giving knowledge, power to others. Where this can fail is when they're trying to motivate more experienced experts or peers. So if you don't have that backup of like, yeah, I know how to do this, then the more experienced people are just not going to really have faith in you. And so on the flip side, this style is best when a new direction is needed. The next is a coaching leader. This guy is a lot more involved, rather compared to the visionary leader. He connects once to the organizational goals, holding long conversations that reach beyond the workplace, so he gets to really know you, helping people to find strengths and weaknesses, and tying these to the career aspirations and actions. They're good at delegating challenging assignments, demonstrating faith that demands justification, and which leads to high levels of loyalty. Now, sounds great, right? But everyone loves their coaches. But there are those bad coaches, and what those ones turn out to be is these micromanagers. And I don't know if any of you guys have experienced a micromanager leader. I actually used to somewhat be one, or somewhat is today, where they just try to control everything, and they do it in a really bad way where it kind of comes off as just untrustworthy. And so it is, but although this style is really good, it's best when used when individuals need to build long-term capabilities. So when you're working with people, if you're going to be a coach of these, fourth graders, they don't have a lot of capabilities. You really need to get in there and be involved with them and really show them step by step on how to do things. So there are times where this is really important. So the affiliative leader is one that creates people's connections and thus harmony within the organization. That people person guy. He has very collaborative style, which focuses on emotional needs over work needs. So sometimes they can seem very almost laissez-faire, but these guys are still really involved with their workers. And so when done badly, it avoids emotionally distressing situations such as negative feedback. So they'll just try to hamper that down, to kind of keep morale up, which is not always necessarily a good thing. But when done well, it is often used alongside visionary leadership. And is also best used for healing rifts and getting through stressful situations. Next is the democratic leader. This one definitely ties back into Lewin's democratic leader, but a little more into it is that democratic leader acts to value inputs and commitment via participation, listening to both the bad and the good news. Although when done poorly, it looks a lot like listening but very little effective action. So the democratic leader is trying to get everyone involved too much, and he's not getting those short-term goals accomplished because he's taking too much time trying to get participation. Although it is best used to gain buy-in or when simple inputs are needed, like when you are uncertain about something. So maybe you guys got yourself into a new situation and you really need to figure something out. Here's the second to last one, and this is the one that I most personally identify as my natural leadership style, is the pace-setting leader. This one builds challenge and exciting goals for people, expecting excellent and often exemplifying it themselves. That part I'm not so sure about myself, but I try. They identify poor performers, definitely do that, and demand more of them. And that's say they will roll up their sleeves and rescue the situation themselves. They tend to be low on guidance, expecting people to know what to do. They get short-term results, but over the long term, the style can lead to exhaustion and decline. One of the things I got to look out for. And so when done badly, it lacks emotional intelligence, especially self-management, which is the one thing I feel like I've really helped myself in getting stronger in, and I hope you guys do too. It is also best used for results from a motivated and competent team. That's the one part I love the most because I feel like you guys are motivated and you're very competent. All right, the last one, the commanding leader. And this one might sound like one of the more negative ones, but also has its good uses. So the commanding leader soothes fears and gives clear directions by his or her powerful stance, commanding and expecting full compliance. Agreement is not needed. They need emotional self-control for success and can seem cold and distant. This approach is best used in times of crisis when you need unquestioned rapid action and with problem employees who do not respond to other methods. So I already know you guys can probably think of a couple maybe members or situations where a commanding leader was needed, but not all the time, of course. All right, so we got the styles down. We talked about emotional intelligence, got all this leadership talk. Now, one big thing about leadership and what I always hear from leaders of the fraternity is just the problem of motivating members. And this is quite most simply understood when we take into account the idea of the thirds of membership. But before we get into that, I want to mention that one trap that many fraternity leaders fall into is the belief that they can and must motivate every member into action in the fraternity. And so I have this gif from Family Guy showing the donkey just giving lip to this guy, just being stubborn. And as you guys will learn in the next few slides, that we're going to avoid these donkeys and we're going to go for the other guys in the membership. So before we get to the donkeys, let's talk about the top third. These, I guess, would be called the studs. These are the guys of the fraternity, the guys that are going to get stuff done. So they're the leaders of your organization. They do most of the work. These members live and die with the success of your organization. They always have an opinion on the direction of their organization as well. And most of you guys are top third members, as I've mentioned before. All right, now let's talk about these asses, the bottom third. So Not entirely bad guys. When a fraternity has gone bad and have a really bad bottom third, maybe they're bad guys, but not always bad guys. But these are the members that are opposite of the top third. They will not sacrifice anything for the organization. They often work to tear down the organization. Again, one of the more severe situations. But definitely true is they don't attend meetings, but they come for fun social events. They may sign up to help with something, but won't follow through. And these make the top members crazy. These asses are just so just aggravating for the top members. And as top members, we often focus a lot of attention on them. But let's not forget about the middle third, the forgotten third. These members enjoy being a part of an organization, but are too busy to give 100% of their time or energy. They may not like all the aspects of your organization, or these members may be juggling several commitments. These members will not do more than they are asked. You do need to ask them though. If you ask, they'll do it. Just don't ask too much. And they often keep their opinions or ideas to themselves and fear they may be assigned more work. So when you ask them opinions, try not to assign work following that. All right. So, like I said, let's stop focusing on these asses, and let's forget about the top members for now because they handle themselves just fine. The ones we're going to gain the most ground on is the middle third. So, here are some main tips for motivating the middle third. Ask for the opinion, but don't ask them to do anything else. Ask them what else organization could be doing. Get their input. Stop making everything mandatory. When we talk about the asses, we'll talk about making minimum standards, but let them lead the thing they like most. So you need to get to know these guys. Ask them what they like to do, and then give them a meaningful, supportive role. And always thank them for participating and showing up. Always. Some other tips. I'll just allow you guys to kind of read through these, but a lot of these are very useful for also motivating them. Some of the little smaller details that these middle third members may like. One of the ones I kind of mentioned before was spending personal time with them. And then also making sure to support these guys. Like I said, this is your ground for building academics, building the human service. These are the guys that you can push to do more. All right, now, I know you guys are focused on that bottom third. You don't want to forget about them. You never will. But here are my tips for the bottom third. And from this book, Motivating the Middle by T.J. Sullivan, this is where I'm getting all this from. So stop focusing on all your time and energy on them. These members have a variety of reasons for not caring about your organization, and they may even care, but just maybe they just don't want to put the time in. And so most of the time, it's not about you personally either. So the best way to deal with them is to set minimum standards for membership in your organization. And so we kind of already have some of these, but we just got to really enforce them and really simplify them. So for example, do these 5 things and we'll leave you alone. Get your 12 hours of community service, get your 2.8 GPA, etc., and we'll leave you alone. Although, like I said, we need to be able to set good standards. We need to be able to, keep that bottom third membership small and not very chaotic and a liability. So we need to be prepared to expel or remove members that do not meet the minimum standards. Very crucial. I know it gets really awkward, but it has to happen. All right, but what about you guys, the top third? Well, the biggest thing, and as a top third member, I will stress this a lot, set up a reward system. At the very least, recognize these guys. Recognize them. Because that's what these guys are all looking for. It's really not about the money. It's not about this or that. It's about being recognized. It's about feeling like they've accomplished something with the fraternity. On the other hand, too, understand that it's never going to be fair, as not everyone will give 100% to the fraternity every day. And this includes top members. And lastly, focus on the positives. So this is kind of a tip for you as a top member. So focus on the positives. What is being accomplished? What is the vision? Keep that vision always in mind, and then always keep in your own personal development. Or if you're working with someone else, another top member, keep in mind their personal development. Remind them, hey, you may be going through a tough time, but remember, through these failures and through these challenges, that's how you just grow as a leader, as a stronger person. All right, so you guys are almost there. Let's just quickly review all that we talked about, because we talked about a lot in this presentation. So first, we discussed the 10 prominent leadership theories, which can help direct your leadership efforts and attitudes. We also discussed emotional intelligence and its important influence regardless of leadership theory. And then when we discussed leadership styles, which unlike types are adaptable to different situations, this does follow situation situational leadership theory, but does not mean it's the best theory. It's just, in my opinion, a good one for a good like umbrella one, as I mentioned. Lastly, we discussed motivating members by understanding the 3 types of members and how to deal with them. So please utilize all these tips, theories, concepts, and I assure you, you'll improve as a leader and become a really good leader. All right, thank you guys.